future trends in industrial relations. Let's look at how do we adapt to changes. So we, every one of us knows what is industrial relations from all the great people, the panels, and from the CHROs from the day one and day two. So what are we expecting a changes? How is the remote work culture or the hybrid work culture is going to impact? Or how is the automations or the artificial intelligence is going to impact on the industrial relation? So there are few trends which we're going to look into. So let's deep dive into them. So there are eight trends we are going to look at. One is about how is going to be the workforce culture and workforce operations. We are looking at how AI and automation will revamp the workforce. We are looking at global reforms and the gig economy. We are looking at the well-being of the employees and the mental health. We are looking at sustainable and ethical business practices. We are also looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness. We are looking at another two trends, which is about data privacy and ethical workplace practices from every organization in IR. And then we are looking at how the learning and development will look at upskilling and reskilling initiatives. So now we are looking at the rise of remote and hybrid workforce. So we are looking at like the challenges with the compliances and how can we do an engagement, what is the security measures we are looking at, how are we looking at governing the productivity. So the solution can be based with collaborations, then legal frameworks, and do we define our workforce policies across. So that would give into our solutioning. So the next one is about how AI ML is going to impact our workforce. So the change will also happen with the HR space. What would be the job rotation or job displacement? What would be the upskilling required for the HR, and what would be the upskilling required across the organization? So the transition will happen with regard to the workforce transition, how ethical AI adaptation can take place, and how is the organization looking at digital competency mapping for all the people across the hierarchy. So the next one is about global reforms and gig economy with impact of people into consulting mode and different level of connect. The IR would also have an impact. So how are we looking at policies and frameworks for consulting mode? How are we looking at fair wages? How are we looking at with people working from different global locations? How are we looking at digital contracts management? So our strategy will have to look at how ethical we are having our hiring practices, and how are our compliances working in accordance with the global labor requirements. The next one we are looking at employee well-being and mental health. See, when you are in office, you have people connect and people looking at you and uh, going in a way to assist people. Like ma'am had also told in the previous discussion how she could gauge the person, and is the he going to put down his paper and everything. So that connectivity and disconnect can be looked into when you have a physical premises, you are on a physical premises. But when we are looking at gig economy and everything, we are not sometimes able to look at what is the burnout, or what is the stress, or what kind of toxic meeting or culture is getting developed because the people are not in premises. So how can we look at solutioning for that? And then we need to look at like what is the leadership training, what is the top down approach the organization is looking at, what are the insurance or workplace wellness initiatives the organization is looking at, or what kind of employee assistant programs are there for a coping mechanism for the employees to look at this kind of scenarios. So next we are looking at sustainable and ethical work practices. Now for this one, we need to look at like how are we looking at it. Are we responsible? Are we then socially responsible? are we looking at a corporate social responsibility perspective over there? So we are looking at environment, social governance, ISO frameworks to that. Then we are also looking at like how is the supply chain transparency mapped into the organization. Are we complying with our reducing our carbon footprint? How are our fair wages practices being done? How are we looking at compliance with the sustainability laws across the global plethora? Then we can look at like ethical employment contracts, how corporate social responsibility is going to look at development across, how carbon footprint can be reduced, how green HR practices can be embedded into the organization, how carbon neutral initiatives or energy saving purchases and star ratings can be incorporated during our purchases. So now next we are looking at the sixth trend. We are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. There has been a lot of impact with at the global level, but we as an Indian country, we are very diversified on our culture or our traditions and everything. We also look at now DEIB with the belongingness into the picture. So we are looking at like how is innovation impacted, or how is the engagement, or what is the cultural diversity, how is the inclusion, how is the cultural transformation across. So we can look at like inclusive hiring, how equal opportunities can be given. And then we are also looking at employee resource groups across to help us across with that. The next one we are looking at our country also looking at data privacy, and at the global level we are also complying with information security and privacy information management system. So you have like ISO 27001, ISO 27701 compliance to that. So we are looking at how the data management across, when we're looking at global hiring, those data can be protected. We are not misusing the personal information data which as a HR we are collating across. So, what is the employee surveillance? How are we monitoring that? What is the data collection risk we are looking? These are few of the challenges which we need to work out. So, how do we adapt to it is with regard to like what is the governance, what is the compliance, what is the cyber security policy, what is our transparency, what are our core values in the organizations to look at this ethical means. Now, the last trend we are looking at how the organization can look at upskilling and reskilling initiatives. So, how are we adopting? How is the workforce adopting to the automation, the AI/ML, or the digital transformation? How what initiatives the organization is doing for the upskilling? Because change is inevitable. Everyone's jobs would be revamped, or transformation also has to happen. A rotation also has to happen. So, how is the digital divide being taken care, or digital skill development taken care? How is industrial partnership with academics to rework on this workforce from the academic side? What are we looking at continuous learning? How are we looking at the digital connectivity for like short learnings, or instead of 1 hour or 2 hour of value, we are looking at micro learning initiatives across with the digital utility. So, what would be our key strategies would be with regard to what is the legal compliances we need to look at reforms, and what is the risk management, what is the risk litigation initiatives the HR has to take care. How are we looking at wellness initiatives, prioritizing everyone's safety, because it's the prima facie. Then how are we looking at the fair practices, ethical business, and ethical practices? How are we looking at inclusivity at all the levels? How is the HR looking at adapting to the technology? How is we have seen the adaptation or the transformation of HR from a personal manager into human experience. So how are we leveraging that with the utility of technology? How are we leveraging it that for the industrial uh, relations? How are we looking at workplace related concerns to that? So we have like a few case studies where hybrid work excellence is being done by Microsoft, then Google and TCS. Then you also have like AI automation pioneers from Tesla and IBM. We have DI champions like our own Unilever and Salesforce. So these are few of the examples where they had done great job with few of the scenarios, trends which we had looked into. So when we look at the future, it is in our hands, and how do we look at it? So how do we do the gig workforce evolution that would happen, or how is AI going to impact the workforce planning? We all of us would have studied manpower planning. So how are we going to do that planning with regard to AI? How automated it can be done? How strategically we can look at it? So we have also looked at Dave Ulrich's model of change, his model of HR thing. So how the manual works can be automated with regard to AI, how we can be a good change agent, how we can be an employee champion, how can we look at strategizing our work so that all the administrative tasks can be taken over by AI. You have a lot of chatbots, you have RPA. So how do we embrace those technological transformation? And then that will come when with the buy-in from the leadership team. So an adaptive leadership, how we gauge their inclusion to that. How are we looking at green HR practices? How are we looking at sustainability at a global level? The Yeah. So any questions, I'll be happy to take some.